And we are back to What Did AI Say? At VickyL-4AI on YouTube. Thank you so very much for coming back to the podcast. As always, gratitude is the attitude. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's episode number 83. Now, what did we ask AI? We're going to start with Chatgpt. The question is, what happens to a mind when it is unable to sort through competing opposite philosophies? That is a good one. Okay, here we go. When a mind can't reconcile competing opposite philosophies, it doesn't just pause, it usually adapts in ways that reduce tension. Psychologists often call this cognitive dissonance, and how it plays out depends on the person and the situation. Okay, cognitive dissonance, I'm sure, is a phrase that has become very popular these days. Let's see if I can explain it in a way that is simplified. Um, you hold two ideas in your mind. They're opposite ideas that are competing with each other. You're unable to assimilate these ideas, and you're unable to choose which idea is going to be your foundation to make your future decisions on. An example. Let me see if I can give an example. Okay, let's talk about, this is a good one. Let's talk about abortion. Okay, a lot of, I guess, evangelical people see abortion as black and white. You can abort or not abort. Okay, the cognitive dissonance comes in when you know in your mind that a female who has been raped by someone she does not even know should not be forced to have a baby by that person. It's not right. They should not have to do it. Or even a female who's raped by someone that she does know, she still should not be forced to have a baby by that person. Now, a lot of us are able to, assimilate these two ideas. We say that, yes, abortion should not be used as a means of birth control. Birth control should be used as birth control. Abortion should be used in situations where a woman is raped by a stranger, a woman is raped by a family member, a child is raped by a family member, a woman's life is in danger. These are all situations that turn our black and white thought about abortion into a gray area. We're not saying that we don't agree that abortion is not, the best choice. We are not saying that we agree abortion is the best choice. We're not saying that we agree abortion is not the best choice. We just prefer not to have abortion become a means of birth control. But we're able to assimilate that in certain cases, abortion should be an option. For people who have cognitive dissonance, they can never make that assimilation. For them, it's black and white, and because they can't make the assimilation that there are cases where abortion is necessary, they have these struggles in their mind, and I guess, Chatgpt, let me continue. It's going to tell us what happens when you can't make a choice between or assimilate, the situations where you have to, have an abortion. So let's see what all of these differences can bring about. Okay, where were we? So psychologists often call this cognitive dissonance, and how it plays out depends on the person and the situation. Here are the most common outcomes. 1, mental overload and paralysis. If both philosophies seem equally valid, the mind can stall. Decision making becomes difficult, sometimes to the point of avoidance. So if both, uh, if both, if both philosophies have equal importance, then your mind can stall. You can become paralyzed and actually avoid making a decision one way or the other, which I'm imagining can't be good. Okay, you might feel stuck, second guessing everything, or unable to commit to a direction. Ooh, that's not good, because then what do you build on? If you can't make a decision, then how do you build on to, your belief system? Okay, let's keep going. 2, fragmentation, compartmentalization. Instead of resolving the conflict, the mind may split it. Okay, here's an option. So if you can't resolve the conflict, your mind splits it. One philosophy is used in certain contexts, the opposite one is used elsewhere. Okay, so you become wishy washy. Whereas in whatever situation you're in, that's what you believe at that time. Okay. For example, someone might believe in strict individual responsibility in one area of life, but systemic causes in another, without ever fully integrating the two. So, yes, that is exactly right. You become wishy washy. In one situation, you're saying this, in another situation, you're saying that, because you haven't been able to integrate the two and pick, your truth from both of those philosophies. Okay, number 3, forced simplification. Okay, this should be interesting. The mind often tries to reduce discomfort by picking one side and dismissing the other completely, sometimes too quickly or rigidly. Okay, that's very interesting, because forced simplification, I believe, is what racism is based off of. Let's read that again. For simplification, the mind often tries to reduce discomfort by picking one side and dismissing the other, sometimes too quickly or rigidly. Yeah, I believe that's what racism is. You pick a side, whereas you feel as though you're superior over others, and then you dismiss anything that challenges that thought process, that belief system. And so you're stuck. That's why racist people tend to be so mentally stuck, because it's like you have to dismiss a whole lot to keep the belief that you are superior over everybody else. That's crazy. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's continue. This can lead to dogmatism, black and white thinking, overconfidence in one framework. Exactly. Okay, what's number 4? Chronic anxiety or inner conflict. Oh my gosh, I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with that. If neither side is rejected, the tension can become ongoing. I don't know that you actually have to reject the side, but you do have to figure out how to combine them. But I don't think that you have to reject it. I mean, for example, we're going back to the first example, for going back to the example I used of abortion. Okay, so I don't believe abortion should be used as a means of birth control. And I do believe that there are instances where abortion is necessary, or should be deemed necessary. So I don't have to reject either side. I just need to bring them together and find my path through the combination of them both. So I don't know if you actually need to reject a side. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Number 4, chronic anxiety or inner conflict. If neither side is rejected, the tension can become ongoing. Rumination, which one is true? Identity confusion, emotional fatigue. Number 5, integration. Integration, the healthiest but hardest path. I don't know how it's the hardest path. I will definitely agree that it is the healthiest. Some people eventually move toward a higher level understanding where the opposites are not seen as mutually exclusive, but context dependent or complementary. This is closer to what philosophers and psychologists call dialectical thinking, cognitive complexity, or in Jungian terms, part of individuation. Instead of asking which is right, the question shifts to under what conditions is each perspective true? Thank you. That is so correct. Under what conditions is each perspective true? That's not being wishy washy, because being wishy washy is not having any type of guidelines whatsoever. It's like, if I'm in this situation, I'm going to say this. And if I'm in this situation, I'm going to say this. You haven't combined the two opposite philosophies at all. You're just riding the wave of whatever group you're in front of. That's what you're going to say. But with this, with the cognitive complexity, this means that you're actually considering both philosophies and finding your path through the two of when you will accept this one and when you will permit the other one to be accepted. What circumstances will you permit the other one to be accepted, even though you're not completely disregarding your belief in this one? Okay, I get that. Okay, so here we go. What determines the outcome? A few key factors. Tolerance for ambiguity. Some people can sit with contradiction longer. But is it contradiction? I don't know. I don't think it's contradiction. I think it's assimilation. Because, I mean, if everything that went against our core beliefs was contradiction, how would we elevate and assimilate to become our better selves? Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's all contradiction. Maybe a challenge to a core belief, but it could be a contradiction at times, but not always. Okay. Emotional state. Stress pushes towards simplification. This is true. When people are under stress, they tend to take the easy road. Environment. Echo chambers versus diverse perspectives. This is true too. And especially depending on your mentality, if you are one of those people who goes with, the norm or the crowd, or you feel peer pressure to agree to something that you really don't believe in, yeah, that's going to play. Your environment, the people that you're around, that's going to play a factor in, your thought at that time, especially when you're with them. Okay, identity. If a belief is tied to who you are, it's harder to question. This is true. And I think that this comes back to the racism disease that we have going on in our country. So if a belief is tied to who you are, it's harder to question. If you believe that you are superior over others, then you're definitely not going to allow any type of contradiction to jeopardize that core belief. Okay, now we're getting to, I believe this is going to be Chatgpt summary. They start off, in short, a mind that can't sort opposing philosophies doesn't stay neutral. A mind that can't support opposing philosophies doesn't stay neutral. Hear me? Assimilate that. A mind that can't sort opposing philosophies doesn't stay neutral. It either fragments, shuts down, clings to one side, or with effort evolves into a more nuanced way of thinking. So there you go. If you can't sort opposing philosophies, your mind is either going to fragment, it's going to shut down, it's going to cling to one side, or with effort, it evolves into a more nuanced way of thinking. So those are your 4 choices. Fragment, shut down, cling to one side, evolve into a more nuanced way of thinking. Okay, if you want, this is Chatgpt, it can take a specific pair of philosophies you're struggling with and work through how they might actually fit together instead of canceling each other out. So if you are struggling with competing philosophies, ChatGPT can help you to discover how they fit together and how you can assimilate them instead of having to cancel out one or the other. Okay, that was pretty insightful. Let's go ahead and move on to Deepseek's answer. And if you forgot the question, please allow me to repeat it. What happens to a mind when it is unable to sort through competing opposite philosophies? Okay, Deepseek's answer. This is a profound question about the limits of cognition and the nature of belief. When a mind encounters competing opposite philosophies such as determinism versus free will, materialism versus idealism, or nihilism versus existentialism, and finds itself unable to sort through them, it enters a specific and often distressing psychological state. And something that just made me remember is that there are people who live in that distressing psychological state their entire lives. I don't even know how that's possible. Okay, let's continue. The outcome is rarely just one thing. It tends to be a dynamic process that can lead to several distinct and sometimes sequential consequences. 1. Cognitive dissonance and paralysis. The most immediate reaction is often cognitive dissonance. We already talked about, okay, let's see what Deepseek said. The mental discomfort of holding 2 contradictory ideas simultaneously. When the mind cannot resolve this by choosing one philosophy over the other or by synthesizing them, it can slip into analysis paralysis. The experience. Every decision becomes contingent on a foundational question that remains unanswered. That's what I was saying. You can't build off of a decision you don't make. So if free will is an illusion, should I punish my child? But if I act as if it's real, am I lying? Unable to act on either premise, the mind stalls. Action feels arbitrary and the will is suspended. 2. Ego dissolution and identity crisis. Philosophies are not just abstract ideas, they are scaffolding for identity. A person who holds a materialist worldview sees themselves as a biological machine. Okay. A person who holds an idealist worldview sees themselves as a soul having an experience. That's interesting. Let me read that again. A person who holds a materialist worldview sees themselves as a biological machine. A person who holds an idealist worldview sees themselves as a soul having an experience. Okay. I think overall I'm an idealist with a soul, but I also see myself as a biological machine. So I guess those 2 thought processes I have synthesized into what works for me. Okay, when the mind cannot sort through opposites, the scaffolding collapses. This can lead to a state of ego dissolution without the spiritual preparation typically associated with it, like in Zen or Advaita Vedanta. Instead of enlightenment, the person experiences depersonalization. Depersonalization, no self-love, no feeling relevant, a sense that the self is just a temporary configuration of competing narratives with no genuine center. So, when you put a bunch of people in charge of a country who are depersonalized with no sense of self, and they're not trying to preserve the democracy in the country. They're trying to bring about their ending so that they can move on to where they believe they're going to go. Okay, 3. The retreat into radical skepticism or nihilism. If the mind is exhausted by the effort of sorting and finds no objective arbiter to judge the opposites, it may retreat into a defensive posture. Radical skepticism. The mind concludes that if two opposite systems can both argue so convincingly, then reason itself must be flawed. The person may abandon the pursuit of truth altogether, retreating into pure relativism. There is no truth, or solipsism, only my perception exists. Ooh, there is no truth, relativism, or solipsism, only my perception exists. That's dangerous. Okay, passive nihilism. This is often misdiagnosed as depression. It is the conclusion that since no philosophy can claim supremacy, no action has intrinsic value. Since no philosophy can claim supremacy, my actions don't matter. That's detrimental. The mind stops sorting not because it has found peace, but because it has deemed the act of sorting meaningless. Number 4, dialectical collapse versus dialectical synthesis. In a healthy intellectual process, the mind engages in a dialectic thesis. Philosophy A meets antithesis philosophy B to create synthesis, a higher understanding that incorporates both. So, thought A meets thought B, and we combine to find the path through them both. Okay. When the mind is unable to sort through them, the dialectic collapses. However, this collapse can sometimes force an unconscious synthesis. So when we don't find a common ground, or when we don't find synthesis, unconsciously, the synthesis can be found without us. Often when the conscious mind stops trying to sort, choose one over the other, the unconscious mind begins to hold the tension. This is what the poet John Keats called negative capability. When a man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. So when people are comfortable just living in a place where they choose nothing, where they choose no philosophy, where they believe in nothing. Wow, the more I read this, the more dangerous this, well, we know it's dangerous. Okay. If the mind can tolerate the discomfort of not sorting, it sometimes matures into a state of complexity. It learns to hold opposing truths simultaneously, understanding that reality might be complementary rather than binary. Okay, I can see where that can be good, but I can also see where that can be bad. Especially if you're stating that reality might be complementary rather than binary. So, I mean, if reality is off the table, then you can hold all kinds of truths in your mind that are opposing and don't work in our current reality. But that seems like major detachment. Okay, let's continue. For example, learning to act as if free will exists while intellectually acknowledging determinism, or recognizing that a thing can be both meaningless cosmically and profoundly meaningful personally. Okay, that part I understand. So you can believe that for the You can believe that for the masses, something can be true, but for you personally, that's not the case. Okay, that part I understand. And that part, I think that we all have that experience. But believing in opposing ideas and not allowing reality to play a part in it, to me, is extremely dangerous. Because if reality is not a factor, then we can believe whatever. The only, what makes the beliefs, what makes, yeah, we would never have to choose if reality wasn't a factor. We would never have to choose. But because reality is a factor, that is why we have to make the choices. Okay, number 5, psychological fracturing. Okay, this is what Chatgpt talked about too. If the pressure to sort is external, social pressure to pick a side, or internal, a high need for cognitive closure, the inability to resolve the opposites can lead to psychological fracturing. Okay, compartmentalization. The mind cordons off the philosophies into different contexts. The person is a strict materialist at work, but a mystic at home. While functional, this requires immense mental energy to maintain the barriers. Reaction formation. To escape the anxiety of ambiguity, the mind may latch on to one philosophy with dogmatic fervor, not because it has been sorted as true, but because the certainty, any certainty, is a relief from the pain of ambivalence. Number 6, the shift from intellect to intuition. Often the mind fails to sort competing philosophies because philosophies are sorted by intellect but lived by intuition. Ooh, that's good. Eventually, the mind may abandon the attempt to sort them conceptually. It shifts from a paradigm of truth, which one is correct, to a paradigm of utility, which one helps me live well. The French philosopher Pascal touched on this. The heart has its reasons of which reason knows nothing. When the logical mind cannot adjudicate between opposites, the will often steps in. The person stops asking what is true and starts asking, what do I choose to be? Okay, Deepseek summary. A mind that cannot sort through competing opposite philosophies is in a state of liminality, the threshold between old certainties and new understandings. If the mind resists this tension, it leads to anxiety, nihilism, or rigid dogmatism. But if the mind learns to tolerate the tension without forcing a resolution, it can develop what psychologist William James called a strenuous mood, the ability to act with conviction even in the absence of absolute epistemological certainty. Epistemological certainty. I think I got that right. In that space, the mind moves from being a consumer of philosophies to a creator of meaning. Okay, very interesting. Oh my gosh. Whew, that was long. Okay, let's go ahead and get to our... Oh, wait. How does any of this affect our daily lives? Learning to hold opposite philosophies and being able to forge a line through them both that works for us and helps us to discover our truth is, I believe, what life is all about. Going back to the first example, I don't believe that abortion should be used as a means of birth control. But I also, on the other hand, believe that there are cases where abortion should be an option. So I have found a way to live with both of those and to make them work for how I feel, what I believe. And I think that that's what life is all about. With every belief that we have, when we get new information, it has to be assimilated. And if it's not assimilated, then we don't elevate. Because I mean, there was a time where I believed that certain things were good for me, health wise, or to eat. And now, after I've learned about, processing and what goes into it and what is taken out of it, I know better. So, but if I refuse to assimilate the new information and have it challenge my old belief system, I wouldn't be as healthy as I am now, and I wouldn't have learned what I now know. So for me, everything about life is about assimilating old beliefs with new information in order to find that middle ground. Okay, let's get to our positive saying for today. And this comes from Jason Wilson, who, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He is a black man making changes, starting with teaching young men how to control their anger and how to process it, let it out in a good way or in a positive way. And he also is helping a lot of black men to be better men, better fathers, better husbands. And I admire that. But he had a saying that I found in one of his videos that I identify with completely. Don't be vulnerable. Be transparent and be open. Don't be vulnerable. Be transparent and be open. I know that vulnerability is the word now, but for me, I agree with Jason on this one. For me, the word vulnerable is not a place of strength. I don't need to be vulnerable in order to be transparent and in order to be open. And I like that. Don't be vulnerable, be transparent, and be open. Okay, that's all I have for you this episode number 83. Thank you so very much for giving me about 33 minutes of your time. Wow, we really did go over. We the people have the power. Peace. See you next episode.